All right. Well, good morning, everyone. We want to thank you all for being here at this fantastic facility. I don't think there's enough times we can come here. And for those members of the media who haven't really taken a tour of this new facility, I urge you to do so. It's a hackneyed term, I guess, but it is truly state of the art, and it has brought together several elements of law enforcement here in the city: our Metropolitan Police Department, our Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and elements of public health. All are in this building, and I think their very presence here is facilitating improved outcomes in the law enforcement area. So if you haven't done so, please do so. I am absolutely delighted to be here this morning to be able to sign two important pieces of legislation that are designed to combat impaired driving. I think you all recall that we cut the ribbon here back in October, so this building has now been open 4 months, not even 4 months yet, really. It's 3.5 months, and will play a role in this effort. The two bills, which are the Breath Test Admissibility and Criminal Proceedings Act of 2012 and the Ignition-interlock Amendment of Act of 2012, are important tools in our efforts to combat impaired driving here in the District of Columbia. They are a culmination of nearly 2 years of work by many people across the district government and a variety of agencies, and of course including our Council of the District of Columbia. The effort has resulted in the enactment of a comprehensive reform of the district's impaired driving laws, the restoration of improved breath testing instruments and procedures, the training and deployment of literally dozens of police officers, and the deployment, if you will, of skilled prosecution efforts through our Attorney General's office dealing with often complex cases. I want to thank a number of people this morning. I want to begin, he isn't able to be with us, but I want to begin by thanking Chairman Phil Mendelson for his work. As you will recall, he was the chairman of the relevant committee, the Committee on Public Safety and Justice, the Judiciary, I guess I should say. And as he typically does, he worked tirelessly with his colleagues and with us to be able to move this legislation forward. Also want to acknowledge that Councilmember Tommy Wells has now become the chair of this committee, and we look forward to working with him as well. I want to thank our outstanding Chief of Police, Kathy Lanier, who is represented today by Assistant Chief Newsham, who you will hear from. Also, our medical examiner, Dr. Pierre Louis, who you will hear from, our Attorney General, who you will hear from next, and our DMV Director, Lucinda Babers, as well as the Chief of DDOT's Transportation Safety Branch, Carol Lewis. And there are lots of staff who worked with them to be able to get to this important day. I also want to thank a number of organizations who worked with us, RAP, the Washington Regional Alcohol Program, the Century Council, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, which for so many years has done such incredible advocacy work to take drunk drivers off the street, the National District Attorneys Association, and of course our many federal partners, especially the U.S. Capitol and Park Police departments, as well as others. I don't think anyone can deny that impaired driving, whether it's an impairment by alcohol or an impairment by drugs, is an enormously serious problem here in the city, across the region and around the nation. And I don't think there's any acceptable excuse for it. Someone who's driving under the influence or driving drunk is actually like a moving missile. When you think about some of these explosive devices that we hear about in war and terrorist attacks, I'm not sure that these folks behind the wheel driving impaired really don't create the same kind of peril for people as these kinds of devices do. In 2011, based on National Highway Traffic Safety Administration data, almost 10,000 people were killed by impaired driving crashes, which is a very disturbing, one person every 53 minutes. In D.C., we had, based on the best data we have, MPD data, we had 12 people who were killed by a driver who was impaired by alcohol or, excuse me, by drugs, and obviously these deaths all were quite avoidable. Even though one death is obviously too many, we believe that our prevention and enforcement efforts have kept the numbers low, and we hope that what we're doing today will lower those numbers even more. Clearly, I think we'd all agree that we have to do everything that's possible to prevent impaired drivers from getting behind the wheel, and do everything possible to identify and arrest and prosecute them if they do drive and endanger the lives of others. The new law, the two bills that I'm about to sign today, are important tools in our arsenal of weapons to be able to address that. Combined with the restored and, I would say, state-of-the-art breath testing equipment that we now have in place and in use, the oversight by the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the training and deployment of DUI officers, and the skilled prosecution by Irv Nathan's office in these cases, I think we're now at a place where we can feel proud that we are in the forefront of combating impaired driving in the nation. And I think we see this as a challenge to do even more. So with that having been said, and before we get to the point of actually signing the legislation, I want to call upon a few people. We're going to begin with our Attorney General, Irv Nathan, who will then be followed by Assistant Chief Newsham, who will be followed by Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Pierre Louis, and then our DMV Director, Lucinda Babers. So if we would just come up in the order that I mentioned, we'll move right through. Irv?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I think that's for you, not for me. Good morning. I'm delighted to be here, and thank everyone for coming to what I think is a very important event. And I think it demonstrates the approach that Mayor Gray has taken, which is not only the one city, but one government, and working a number of agencies together. And we have a lot to be thankful for the coordination of a lot of people. The first one, of course, is the mayor, who has given great direction to this matter. And the second person is Paul Quander, our deputy mayor for public safety, who has been instrumental in coordinating the efforts of a lot of agencies. I also want to echo the mayor's statements about the council and Chairman Mendelson, who was at the time chairman of the Judiciary Committee, who has fostered this, as well as Mary Che, another member who's been very active in this. There are a number of agencies that have been very instrumental in this, and obviously we'll hear from all of them, but I want to thank Pete Newsham for being here, because the MPD has been stellar in this, and Dr. Pierre Louis, and the medical examiner has been great, and Lucinda Babers, and all the agencies that have helped us. I want to also make a special mention of Carol Lewis from DDOT, who has been very instrumental and provided some financial assistance from DDOT for us and for the effort here. Let me first speak to the folks in my office, the Attorney General's office. And I think you need to understand where we started on this and where we came in 2011. There was a problem that had been developed as early as going back to at least 2010, where we had problems with the breathalyzers, we had problems with the convictions that resulted, and we basically had to take a three-prong approach to this. One was we had to continue prosecuting drunk driving. We did not give up on that. We had to use alternative methods. We didn't have the breathalyzers we couldn't use. They were out of commission. They were they hadn't been calibrated properly. But we persisted, and we did not stop our prosecutions. We went to urine analysis and other kinds of testing to allow our cases to proceed. We also had to settle the cases that had been brought, and we did that through litigation from our civil division, and we settled those matters on a very reasonable basis. We didn't set aside many prior convictions. And the third thing is we worked together with all these agencies to develop what is now state-of-the-art breathalyzer equipment and to develop legislation, not only the two bills that these are important bills that the mayor will sign today, but a comprehensive bill that was prepared and passed by the council in the summer and that we've been using since, and we have a number of plea convictions under it, and we'll have trials starting under it, and that legislation is very important, and I'll describe it momentarily. But what I wanted to thank the folks who are here from our office. The first is Andy Foys, who is the chief of our public safety division, and before him, Rob Hildum, who helped fashion these approaches, and then the staff who worked with them and done a terrific job. Dave Rosenthal, a longtime veteran of this office, who is the leader in drafting legislation, Melissa Spear, who is here, Sarah Branch, Whitney Stobner, and Kim Brown, who's not here, but and Alicia Washington, who is. And these guys have done a great job, and we're very grateful to them. And from the Chief Medical Examiner's office, we also have Lucas Zarwell and Jennifer Runkle, who have been really terrific for us. And we have commanders from the MPD, including Jim Crane and Assistant Chief Lamar Green, as well as Nick Brule, who I see is not here, but they've done a great job in working on this. And as you know, as the mayor has described, drunk driving is a serious problem. I saw a study recently that said that the district was one of the 10 drunkest cities in the nation, not something that we're really proud of. What we are proud of is we have a good public transportation system, and obviously people who are impaired, whether by drugs or alcohol, should take advantage of that system, but not be driving, which is a great danger to all of us. The two bills that will be signed today, one is the breath test admissibility, which establishes strict minimum admissibility standards, and it means that we'll have these machines calibrated. We'll be confident that they are giving accurate results. The courts will be satisfied that we've done all we can to be completely accurate. We're getting help from the Chief Medical Examiner's office on this, and we'll meet all the standards that are in that bill and ensure that we get convictions when charges are brought. And the ignition-interlock amendment, which authorizes DMV, and Lucinda Baber can talk about this, that will authorize them to issue new regulations that will govern the use of interlock devices after someone has been convicted of drunk driving. As I mentioned, these complement the bill that the mayor signed, the council passed, the mayor signed, which is called the Comprehensive Impaired Driving and Alcohol Testing Program of 2012. And that bill provides for much higher penalties for first-time impaired drivers and mandates more severe mandatory minimum sentences for repeat offenders. And we've noticed, by the way, since using this, that about 9% of our cases involve people who are impaired by drugs, PCP, and not just by alcohol. Another very important provision there, it relates to impaired persons who are driving with children in their vehicles and provides for substantial penalties if the children are not in proper child restraints. And as you may know, that motor vehicle crashes are the #1 cause of death of children ages 3 to 14 in the United States, and we won't tolerate irresponsible adults who put their children's lives at risk driving impaired. And the new law also features some tough provisions for impaired drivers of commercial vehicles, taxi cabs and limos and shuttle buses, because when people hire drivers to drive them, they expect them not to be impaired. We've been dealing with this law since it was passed, and we've been working with the judiciary. We have trained, we have other sessions planned with the judges to make sure that they know what the provisions of these laws are as well. And finally, while I'm up here, the mayor mentioned RAP. I wanted to brag a little bit about our office. This year we got the RAPI Award for the Office of Attorney General for our efforts in combating impaired driving. And our lawyers really deserve that because it's a very difficult process. There are a lot of defense lawyers who make it very difficult, courts that insist that we meet all the elements, and we do, and our prosecutors are up to the task and have been praised for their efforts both in court and getting this legislation through. So I'm very pleased to be here. I'm glad you're here, and we'd be happy to answer questions after the other speakers go through it, and turn it over to Pete Newsham.
Okay, good morning, everybody. We were going to have a preset volunteer come up and be tested on the machine, but we've changed that. We're going to randomly select somebody from the media to come up and be tested, if that's okay with the mayor. Good morning, and on behalf of Chief Lanier and all of the members of the Metropolitan Police Department, we'd like to thank Mayor Gray for signing this critically important legislation. As already mentioned, this legislation will strengthen penalties for first offenders, offenders with high blood alcohol content, and those who drive impaired with children in their vehicles. First-time offenders will know that DC takes drinking and other types of impaired driving very seriously. Offenders with high blood alcohol content, which is indicative of those who abuse alcohol, will know that they will not be allowed to drive here in the district. And those who choose to drive with children in their vehicles will be dealt with more harshly. There's nothing more heartbreaking for a police officer than to respond to the scene of a crash where there's a child, an innocent child victim, that's been injured or killed as the result of an adult impaired driver. Important to note in this new legislation is that it also ensures that appropriate measures are taken to ensure that the test results that are used as evidence in court are accurate. The District of Columbia ended 2012 with 19 traffic fatalities. As you know, in 2011, we had 32. This 40% reduction in traffic fatality is indicative of safer streets in the District of Columbia, and we believe this new legislation and revamped program will make our streets even safer. Many people worked to make this happen. Chief Lanier wanted to make sure that I thanked those folks. We have the leadership and the staff of many of those agencies here. So I want to thank, of course, the City Council of the District of Columbia, the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor Quander, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, the District's Department of Transportation, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the Office of the Attorney General, the Department of Motor Vehicles, the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, the Capitol and the Park Police, all of our private partners, many of whom the Mayor mentioned, and from the Metropolitan Police Department, I have Commander Crane and Sergeant Thorne here in the audience, and much of the other staff of the agencies are here, and we get to stand up here and kind of take credit for all their hard work. So thank you to everybody for all your assistance in this, and we will be available to answer any questions that you have after the others speak. All right, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. As medical examiners, of course, we witness firsthand the tragic results of drunk driving. So we are thankful to the mayor and to our deputy mayor, Paul Quander, who have trusted us into developing this new program. This new program meets the requirement of the national standards, it is objective, and it also meets the instrumentation requirement of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. We have trained 31 officers so far, and we have had 206 tests performed. Our chief toxicologist, as well as our expert, Ms. Jennifer Wonkel, teach the Metropolitan Police officers, oversees the quality control of the instruments. Those instruments, again, meet the national requirement. They meet the National Highway Traffic Standard Administration objectives or standards. And the tests are performed really in an objective way, and they can be repeated and give us the results that we need. So I'm grateful to my staff who have worked very hard to attain this, to fulfill this requirement and achieve this feat. That today we have this legislation and we are able to again be performing objective breath analysis on the street. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Lucinda Babers. I am the director of the DC Department of Motor Vehicles, and I'm delighted to be here to watch the mayor, who's, through his leadership, we are able to sign a new ignition-interlock program. I also want to thank Councilmember Che, who has oversight over the DMV, and Chairman Mendelson for making sure this bill was passed through the council. The amendment that we're going to be signing today will actually widen the number of people who are going to be eligible for the Ignition Interlock program. We first introduced our program in 2006, and unfortunately, how it stands today is you must be convicted of a second DUI or DWI in order to be eligible to enter the program. And so currently today, we only have 80 people who are eligible for the Ignition Interlock program. When this becomes law, the new bill that the mayor is going to sign, we'll have over 1,800 people who will be eligible because they'll be eligible on the first offense. And so I know that MAD and the other organizations really support that, and we're thankful we're going to be able to bring this available to people. For those who do not know what an ignition interlock program is, it is a device that is installed on an individual's vehicle, an individual who has been revoked, who has had their driver's license revoked, and it will allow them to drive that vehicle, go to work, support their family, do the things that they need to do, but do it in a safe manner such that we know that they have not been drinking. In order for them to start that vehicle, they will have to blow into the device. If their blood alcohol level is to a level that is unacceptable to be driving, and usually our vendor sets it at 0.02%, then vehicle will not start. Now, of course, you're saying, aha, Lucinda, what if they have somebody else blow? Well, what happens is once they start that vehicle and they're driving at increments, it will require them to blow again to make sure that they are indeed the ones who are driving. And it's mandatory that every vehicle that they use must have this device installed. And then, unfortunately, once the device is installed, those teenagers who want to use daddy's vehicle or mommy's vehicle, hey, it's good. It requires those teenagers to blow. So it's like another added incentive for the individuals. So once again, we're just delighted, and we look forward to improving those individuals' lives who do have revoked license by allowing them to continue to contribute to society. Thank you.
Trying to picture the person who would get in a car and blow for somebody else who they know is impaired. That's pretty smart, isn't it? In any event, we're going to move over here now and sign the bill, and then we're going to have a demonstration after that. So if you all will turn your attention to...
On your way?
We're online. Thank you very much.
Let's see. Chief Newsom. There you are. Let's see. Lucinda.
Thank you, sir.
There you are. Dr. Pierre Louis. There you go. All right, there's one. Who's Carol Lewis? There you are.
Thank you.
All right, Carol.
That's the right checks.
Made out to you, me and Irv. Let's see. Irv, I'll give you a second one to give to one of your staff. How's that?
Okay, I'll be happy to do that. Whitney?
Let's see, who, yeah. There we go. Okay. Who should get the last one? We could give it to Chairman Mendelson. There we go. All right. Now I'll move so we can have a demonstration.
My name is Jennifer Runkle. I'm the Breath Program Manager for the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, work in the Toxicology Unit. What we're going to do today is a little bit of demonstration on how the instrument works. I'm going to go ahead and start it up, and we're going to go ahead and I'll talk you through it a little bit as we go. I'm probably going to block the instrument for a brief moment, but I will try and get out of the way. So the first thing an officer does when he has a subject is he does a 20-minute observation after the arrest. At this point, we're making sure that there's no residual alcohol in the mouth, there's nothing put in the mouth, taken out of the mouth, anything like that. For the program that we put into place, the officers have a breath operator license, in which is issued after they attend the 40-hour course, which is taught by OCME. At which point they start the breath instrument, they're prompted to enter their breath operator card. With each of the licenses, there's an associated PIN number, which is unique not only to the card, but that officer as an added level of security for these instruments. It then prompts for our CCN numbers, a central complaint number, I believe, Metropolitan Police Department. And then it'll prompt them to swipe a driver's license. If the person does not have a driver's license, there's no permit, they can go ahead and do a manual entry. For the demonstration purposes, I'm going to do a manual entry. I enter the pertinent information, birth date, name, that type of thing. It asks me if I have performed my 20-minute observation. My subject is a negative, so I'm going to say yes. And then we're going to start the test sequence. At this point, during the testing sequence for the District of Columbia, we run a diagnostic check, which is actually going to just verify that the instrument's functioning properly and able to perform the test. Also, what you'll see go across the screen is it does blank checks, which is basically ensuring the ambient air around the instrument, around the subject, is negative. Obviously, we don't want any sort of ethanol or alcohol fumes that would impact the test. It performs 5 blank checks throughout the sequence. It also performs 2 accuracy checks during the sequence. The accuracy checks are essentially verifying the accuracy of the instrument for that test, for that day, at that time. It's done with a dry gas standard. These are certified standards to the National Institute of Standard Technology. We verify the tanks in-house, they're verified externally, and they're in the instrument as a dry gas. It's the only thing we use for accuracy checks. The instrument will take 2 different subject tests, as we'll demonstrate. There is certain criteria that must be met on all of these things, as far as acceptability of the accuracy check and acceptability of correlation between those 2 breath tests. A lot of legislation that was signed today basically outlines what those criteria are for the admissibility of a breath test, which was very important. So it's performed its first blank check, result 0. This is one of the mouthpieces that we use to take the subject test. Each one of them comes in its own sealed package. We use a new one for each subject test or each sample provided onto the instrument. The officers are trained to show them, oh, it's sealed, and we verify that there's nothing actually, in the instrument or in the mouthpiece. What's that? So it's already taken its accuracy check. It's evaluating the sample. You'll notice that no numbers are going to pop up. It's not going to tell you what that value is at this point. It'll tell us at the end. The dry gas targets for the District of Columbia on our program is a 0.082 grams per 210 deciliters. I'm sorry, 210 liters of breath, pardon me. So it's telling me to install the clean mouthpiece, which I'll do. It doesn't like that I did it when it was purging. So it's performing its last blank check again. Every time before a subject test, after an accuracy check, after a subject test, we're going to perform a blank check. We're just verifying that the instrument is clear of any sort of alcohol, that there's no any sort of carryover or anything like that would potentially impact the result of the test. It prompted me to put the mouthpiece on prior, just so that we can ensure that it's pulling that ambient air through the mouthpiece, through the breath tube, in the same path that the subject breath test will go. So at this point, it's going to prompt me to have my subject come forward and take a test, which we will do. No, she's going to step forward and do it. So go ahead and step forward, Sam. Take a long, deep breath. Blow long and steady into the tube until you hear the beep. Go, 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 go. Perfect. It's now going to evaluate the sample. It's going to accept the sample. And then again, we're going to start the process again, where we do a blank check, an accuracy check, and all that again. Start to finish on this, it's 6 minutes. It feels like a lot longer, right? But it's about 6 minutes if you have 2 good subject tests. At the end, it's going to print out a final result. The final result for our program is always the lower of the 2 subject tests. Those 2 subject tests have to correlate within a certain range, which was dictated again by the legislation. It's a 0.02 for anyone who. So she'll do her second subject test. After that, we'll do one more blank check. The test will conclude with a diagnostic, just like we started it, making sure that everything in the instrument is functioning as we would anticipate, and that there's no reason for the subject test to be aborted or disabled in any way. And then we'll print out a ticket. It's going to come out of the printer.
Where?
The printer.
Step aside so we can see it.
It's not. She has to do another test first,
Oh.
and then we'll have her step aside.
Should be sober.
6 minutes. 6 minutes.
Can you do Tom Sherwood also?
I know. His patience is overwhelming.
Does it register high blood pressure?
Well, I thought he walked here. He only lives 2 blocks away.
Imagine how the subjects feel.
This is in their call.
These are evidential instruments. They're located right now. We have 3 evidentials at 3 of the districts: 1D, 3D, and 7D. Eventually, hopefully by the end of the year, we're hoping to have the rest of them disseminated, but currently we're using them as training instruments to try and get as many MPD officers trained as we can.
So you don't do this in the field, you got to bring it back to the precinct.
They bring them back to the precincts. Yeah, two subject tests for every sequence. 2 accuracy checks for every sequence, 5 blanks.
And Jen, if they correlate, so they're close together in number, does that mean, and then it takes the lower of the 2 results?
Correct. So for an example, if we have a 0.083 and a 0.079, it's going to take a 0.07 as your final result. And again, the correlation, which was defined by the legislation, is a 0.02 grams per 210 liters of breath. I'm assuming ours are going to be zeros and zeros. So. unless we have any confessions we want to make up front here. So the final result should be a 0.00 grams per 210 liters. I know. So Sam, go ahead and step forward for your next breath. Again, long, deep breath. Go long and steady into the tube until you hear the beep. Go, 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 go. Perfect. Thank you. I'll step over here maybe so they can. So again, we're going to perform the last blank check and a diagnostic. The software, originally when we did a lot of the changes to it and a lot of the implementation, we built it to be compatible with the American Society of Crime Lab Directors International Breath Calibration Accreditation. So a future goal of the program is to get through that accreditation, and that's why we have the sequence the way we have it, so that we're meeting all of the standards that are set forth at an international level of quality. So that's why we have 6 minutes of time. So again, it's final blank check. I'll then perform a diagnostic check. On the screen, it's going to pop up the results. You'll see test 1 and test 2, and it'll have a result. Again, there should be zeros. And then it'll print out that final ticket. So there's the final results that popped up with the test 1 and test 2. It's ending sequence 1, and now it should be printing out our result into the printer. And this is the ticket that the officers will use and then the attorneys will use to prosecute the cases. Hopefully there's paper in the printer. So this is our final breath ticket. The officer will sign this, which is signing that he did the 20-minute observation.
How'd she do?
I don't know, you guys tell me. I think it's zeros. I think we're clear. Excellent volunteer. She followed all the rules. So you can see it breaks down everything that happened with the blank checks, the accuracy checks, the subject results. And it has all of the information on the top of the officer and the subject as well.
Hold it there, hold it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. As I understand it, too, we were just talking about this, the ignition-interlock system from a technical perspective or mechanical perspective works similarly. That it's a similar software package that then allows the ignition system not to be enabled, much like this breathalyzer system works. Is that right?
Yeah, it's much smaller.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Right. Okay. Tom?
I don't know if you can answer these, but can we just get some kind of TikTok details? Will these machines be in those 3 precincts right away? Are they starting today, this afternoon, tomorrow? And did I hear you hope to have them in all precincts by the end of the year?
Yeah, it was already mentioned, we have them in 3 of the districts right now, geographically located, so they're available. We have about 30 officers trained, and there's training coming up in February. We should be up to about 100 officers trained relatively quick.
When should drivers be worried about these machines?
The machines are already out and being used. There's already been 200 tests, more than 200 tests that have been used. Yep,
how many people came up drunk in those 200 tests, do you know?
I don't have those figures.
And then what were you saying about the number of officers who are currently licensed to perform the test?
We have 31, and we have another training scheduled for February, and we anticipate, like I said, being up to 100. The training, I believe, in February is for 12 more, but they're going to continue periodically, and we're going to get up to, I would say, by the spring or the early summer, we'll be up over 100 officers trained.
Chief, last fall, I think you were down by the baseball stadium. I think you were there. The whole jurisdictions, suburbs and the city had a big drunk driving program announcement for the fall. Can you tell us, how did that go in the city in terms of people who were arrested in the last few months during the holiday season? Can you give us a sense of, the mayor said it's an enormous problem in the city.
Yeah, I mean, I think for 2012, I think the Metropolitan Police Department had over 1,000 arrests. It's right around 1,000, between 1,000 and 1,100 arrests for driving while impaired. And then you also have to consider that we have other agencies working in the city that also had arrests. And I think once you calculate all those numbers, it's around, what, 1,400?
Yeah, for all the agencies combined, for calendar year 2012, the preliminary figures are approximately 1,400, but that's not final yet. In terms of events that yield the most impact in terms of deaths, Halloween's the most fatal holiday, and that's one reason why we will have the rollout during the fall. And we've had a lot of successful initiatives, not only us, but the other agencies, in putting officers out there, not only for checkpoints, but also for patrol. James Crane, CR,
And then I mentioned it earlier. We had 19 fatalities this past year, traffic-related fatalities, and about a third of those were related to alcohol.
Was it 12, Chief?
It was 12 in 2011.
Yeah, okay.
What happens if somebody refuses to take the test?
There's requirements within the law. It's if you refuse to take the test, it's just like somebody who refuses to take the test. Like if they refuse to blow into the machine, it's considered a refusal, and there's ramifications for your driving privileges based on that.
So if you refuse to take the test, you can have your driving privileges revoked?
Yes.
For how long?
What's the time frame on that?
I believe it's up to a year. The thing to remember about these tests is these tests are done post-arrest. The person taking this type of test will already have been arrested for impaired driving based on what the officer observed in the field. So whether they decide to take this test or not, it's not going to make any difference in them being arrested and eventually being prosecuted.
And the test is 100% accurate?
Well, there's a lot of work done on the software, and ACME is doing an excellent job as a project manager, so we strive for 100%.
Because I've seen someone impaired with Robitussin once, and he's like, yeah, I swear it was Robitussin, but it looked like alcohol impairment to me. But I know Robitussin has alcohol in it as well, so, could it misread
An important
someone?
thing to mention is that you can conduct a standard field sobriety test. You can make an arrest based on those observations, and it may not be alcohol. It could be a drug that's in somebody's system, and that would require additional testing, urine or blood sampling, to determine a level of inebriation that's associated with a drug. So that's not uncommon. Somebody may claim that they just had some Robitussin or some other cough medicine, and the fact of the matter is they may have some drugs in their system, which is causing their impairment.
I have a question. I don't know, one of you, but for 2 years, basically, we haven't had breathalyzers, right? Is that correct?
We haven't been using the breathalyzers, that's correct, since about 2010.
Has it changed the number of people that have been, arrested for
I think you have to,
DWI
it's
or
been
DUI?
relatively consistent. Nationally, arrests for drinking and driving have declined. During this time frame, the numbers have remained relatively consistent. And the thing that the commander mentioned, which is important for everyone to know, is that these tests are conducted post-arrest. So it's an evidence collection instrument. You're collecting evidence for essentially for prosecution.
Is it just test for alcohol?
Yes.
But the numbers in the city, I'm trying to find out, have the numbers, let's say 2012, were there fewer people convicted of DUI, DWI in 2012 than before these tests ended?
The convictions, someone from OAG want to talk about convictions? I can tell you that the arrests during this time frame have remained relatively consistent. So there's been no significant, movement in the number of arrests since this. So, and if you look at 2012, for example, the instrument we began using the instrument in late September, but we still had 1,000, over the course of the year, we had more than 1,000 impaired driving arrests. So we were still making the arrest. The thing that we were missing was this evidence that this machine can assist us with regards to prosecutions.
Attorney General knows comment on that. Our conviction rate stayed stable as well because of the arrests, and it's a great tribute to our prosecutors who didn't have the breathalyzer evidence, which is quite compelling evidence, but had alternative evidence, including what the police had observed, the field tests, and in some cases the urine tests. And in answer to Mark's question about those who refuse to take the test, the statute provides that an adverse inference can be drawn in court from the failure of the person to take the test. The person has an option to rebut that inference if, for example, there was some religious reason that precluded them from taking the test, or they had some other good reason that would be presented to the court. But it is definitely admissible in court that the person refused to take the test.
Bruce? While we got you up there, over this 2-year period when you didn't have these machines, you mentioned that you did lose some cases. How many cases did you lose or have to drop?
Well, we dropped some cases. Well, there weren't a great number. I don't know exactly the number. I believe it's less than 50 that were dropped because, for a variety of reasons relating to evidentiary issues, when we were having difficulties with the breathalyzers. But it didn't stop the police from making arrests, as the chief noted, and we went forward in all the cases where we thought we could put on compelling evidence, and we got convictions.
Follow-up, did any of those cases stand out for you? For example, some of those cases you dropped, were any of those people re-arrested, repeat offenders?
I don't have those statistics or numbers. I don't have the sense that it made a great difference in that there wasn't any leading case that we very much regret not being able to prosecute.
Right. Is there a final accounting at this point for the period where the previous period where the old breathalyzer program, how many convictions had to be set aside, and in terms of accounting of how many settlements had to be paid, so on and so forth?
Well, we do have the numbers. I don't have them, but in terms of the settlements, I think we're talking less than 30 cases, and we're talking fairly nominal sums of money, and we're talking very few convictions that were set aside, because when people were convicted, they were convicted on multiple counts, and when the counts that related to the breathalyzers were set aside, they were still able to uphold the convictions on other counts in the charges that didn't rely on the breathalyzer test. The sentences aren't as severe when you can't rely on the breathalyzer test, but it's still on the record in almost all the cases of those who had previously been convicted.
Tom. Mr. Mayor, you said that this impaired driving is enormously serious in the district. Is that just from the numbers you've been given by police, or are you aware of friends or people that you know who've had this problem? I don't want you to identify them, but I mean, how do you say this is an enormously serious problem in the city?
Based on the data and based on talking to those who work with this issue every day, and frankly being aware also of those who do advocacy in this area, the RAP program, the MAD program, and others. So it's based on that as opposed to any personal interactions with folks, Tom.
Does the upcoming inaugural have any incidents? You mentioned Halloween as the worst. How does an inaugural fit in, or is it too infrequent to really know?
Well, obviously, it's once every 4 years. You all have any data on that? I haven't heard of any extraordinary situations.
No, I haven't heard or seen anything where the inauguration has drawn any more arrests than we normally would have. And
police on the street during the inaugural would be really, really not smart to be out drinking, I would think.
Probably not. And, you know, most folks will take public transportation to those balls because it's the best way in and out of the city.
So, Mayor, we understand that with the return of this thing, that the penalties are heightened now. Is that? I thought I heard that.
Yeah, let either Irv or
the penalties are heightened not because of the machines, but because of the legislation that was passed last summer and that we've been utilizing. And those penalties have gone up, particularly for repeat offenders, where there are minimum sentences that are imposed, mandatory minimum sentences.
Baber said even one conviction, now you've got to blow into the...
Well, that's, yes, under the new legislation dealing with the interlock device, that changed it. It's not the sentence. It is that if you only have one conviction, you can have the interlock device. That regulations will be adopted by DMV to allow the interlock device. Previously, it required multiple convictions for DUI.
So you're going from like 80 people that'll have to have these things to 1,800? Is that what we're talking?
No, I don't know what the numbers are going to be, but it's going to be a substantial number. But first we need to have the regulations adopted.
First of all, the ignition-interlock program is not mandatory. It's voluntary. And so right now we currently have 80 individuals eligible, and we have one person in the program. And after the bill gets implemented, one person. But on Monday we met with the second person who's moving into the city from Maryland, and that individual already has an interlock ignition program, and so they must now come and get a DC one because they're converting and becoming a DC resident.
100%.
After the absolutely. So after the bill is passed and we do the regulations, there's the potential of over 1,800 people who will then be eligible because they'll be eligible on the first offense versus the second.
How much does it cost for a driver to put one of those things in his car, or her car?
Our vendor, which is Alcohol Detection Systems, creates the costs themselves. We have nothing to do with it. And so the cost average, though, depending on the type of car, but it's probably around $100 to install, and then there's a monthly fee because you have to keep going back to the vendor to get maintenance on the system, to make sure the system is calibrated, and for them to download the results of the system to just make sure that you are indeed blowing in the BAC level is what it should be.
So the vendor continues to own the system?
Correct.
So what is the incentive for someone who is eligible for the interlock to get the interlock?
To continue to drive because they're revoked, and therefore they can't drive.
Well, then that doesn't sound like it's, that sounds like it's mandatory then.
No, there are many individuals who...
So they just choose not to drive?
Correct, because you know we
Okay.
have a fabulous public transportation system.
Okay, so you can either choose to have this put on and then you can resume driving, or you can just opt not to have it on and find other means of getting around for whatever
Correct.
length of time is determined by DMV or the courts or who?
Well, we have laws that say how long you are revoked, and so we have people who end up just being revoked, and they say they're not going to drive, but then we have people who say it is mandatory that they drive for their job, for their family reasons, and so, but clearly only one so far thinks this. But many, like I said, I mean, you're going from 80 people who are eligible to over 1,800. So we believe some of those 1,800 probably really do need to drive, and so they may come and seek that option to install the device.
All right, thank you all very much. Thank you all. And thank you to the team that worked to make this happen, to bring us in less than 2 years to the point where we are today, which I think puts us in the forefront nationally of addressing this issue. I think clearly we've got further distance to travel, but we'll build upon the technological advancements that we've seen here and with the interlock device, and of course with the continued implementation and enforcement of drunk driving laws here in the District of Columbia. Are there other questions?
Open topics?
Yep.
Can we ask Attorney General Nathan another question?
Certainly.
On another topic before he cuts out the back door?
He's putting a lot of mileage on his shoes today. Why don't you start asking while he's walking?
Well, I have two questions for the Attorney General. The first one is the status of the investigation into Meet the Press and the gun charge, or the gun investigation with David Gregory and Meet the Press.
Thanks. The status is that we have received the report of the investigation of MPD. That report is now with our line prosecutors. I'm expecting their recommendation shortly, and then I will make the decision, and I hope I'll make that decision this week, and then everyone will know what the result is. The choices are to prosecute or to decline to prosecute, and we will look at all the factors and make a determination.
Do you know anything about, there's been talk that NBC did reach out for permission both through the ATF and through MPD. Can you add any clarity to any of that right now?
No, not right now, but I have reason to believe that's in the report, and we'll analyze that first by the line prosecutors, and certainly those issues will be among those considered in making the determination.
Can you tell us if NBC cooperated with the inquiry? David Gregory was questioned.
Well, I don't know all the details of it, but my impression from our line prosecutors is that NBC has been cooperative in the investigation, particularly Mr. Sherwood.
Not that I would want to poke NBC in the eye for any reason. Can I switch gears to another topic?
Sure.
Can you?
Yes.
Is Mr. Gregory the only person who's under investigation here? Are there other people at NBC or otherwise who are potentially exposed to charges?
I need to see what this report says. I understand that this is the complete report, and so if there are any other individuals who are involved, we'll assume that that would be in the written report that we have from MPD, and it will be analyzed by our prosecutors.
On the ballot referendum, sir, the Board of Elections obviously ruled against you. Is that it for you? Do you plan on taking, your office plan on taking any further action before the April 23rd primary?
No, I don't plan on any other action. I do want to say that I'm disappointed about the board's actions, but I'm proud of our office for showing the courage to live up to the highest standards of the bar in urging public officials to adhere to the law, notwithstanding how politically popular the charter amendment is. I understand that the board has said that it's going to provide a decision giving its reasons, and I look forward to seeing that. I think it should be noted that the board said in its summary that they added the words "if upheld," suggesting that they understand that there is likely to be a challenge either in the courts or in Congress, and they have not predicted what the result of that will be. And in my view, only time will tell whether this is an appropriate way to go about getting budget autonomy, as I've mentioned before, a worthy goal. You know, in the final analysis, I continue to believe that doing it lawfully is the only appropriate way to, and the only sound way and long-term way of getting budget autonomy.
If it's challenged, who will defend that challenge?
Well, you know, I will have to wait and see. I don't, I mean, I'll be candid, I don't think that our office will be in a position to defend it if it is challenged. And there are mechanisms in the law, if there is a challenge, and so far no one has filed a lawsuit, then we'll give notice to the mayor and the council and urge them to use those provisions to have other counsel to defend the provision.
Have you thought how you're going to vote on the referendum?
I haven't thought about that yet.
Mayor Gray, can you comment on this? Your attorney
let me say one more thing about, because you mentioned Mayor Gray. I really respect and appreciate Mayor Gray's position on this, which was to allow us, he made it clear to me that we in the Office of Attorney General had to do what we thought was right, notwithstanding the politics or the what the administration had done, which was to sign the legislation to get the matter to the voters, which I fully also understood. But I really appreciated his willingness to allow us to do what we thought was right.
Mayor Gray, what are your thoughts? How are you going to vote, and what are your thoughts about your Attorney General not being able to defend this in court?
Well, we had extensive discussions about this, and as you know, I signed the bill because I fervently want to see budget autonomy in the District of Columbia. At the same time, I expressed my own skepticism about whether this was a legally sound approach. So first of all, you know, following the discussions and a very compelling case that was made by the Attorney General, I agreed to say go forward and make the case. This will allow us to have further discussion about this issue before it gets beyond the District of Columbia. It was done, and you see what the decision is. I want to see budget autonomy in the District of Columbia, but I want to see it done in a lawful manner. So I will continue to look at this issue, continue to study it, and frankly, continue to work just as fervently as I have before to try to bring budget autonomy to the city. Obviously, what would solve this is if the Congress steps up and says, we agree with you, and we believe the district ought to be given permission to move forward, and works with us to make the appropriate charter changes. Mike.
You know, Mr. Mayor, you took an oath when you entered office to uphold the laws, the charter, and the Constitution. When your Attorney General tells you something is against the law, how do you sort of reconcile that against, you know, you get to the point where you're going to say, I believe this is lawful anyway, and I'm going to sign it? I
think at the end of the day, what we'll have, you know, is an expression on the part of the people of the District of Columbia with regard to budget autonomy. I suspect that people will overwhelmingly support, you know, this referendum. But at the end of the day, we'll have to work with the Congress on what this means. You know, Mike, I've expressed my skepticism, my concerns about this, and the fact that the Attorney General, who is obviously, you know, our top lawyer in the District of Columbia, has reservations about it. That's why I let him go forward and do this, so it would be put on the table. The Board of Elections has obviously made a decision, a unanimous decision, to put this on the ballot. I think at the end of the day, we need to do this in a lawful way. We could wind up, for example, being anti-deficient as a result of this, which would be a violation of the law, with which I would have major problems.
Have you spoken to Chairman Issa or anyone else on the Hill on this particular issue?
I have not. I've, of course, spoken to our Congresswoman, who shares, you know, she can speak for herself, as she does quite well. But I think she has reservations about it also. But at the same time, I don't think any one of us wants to stand in the way of something that could result in solving what has been a long-standing fundamental problem for the city.
Staff and the Attorney General and his staff too, in terms of discussions with the Hill. Has there been any sort of communication or contact or heads up that this is coming?
Irvis, right? No. Yes.
This is for MPD. I want to find out a little bit more about the Asian Liaison Unit closing down, and the Asian American community were a little bit put off because they said that Kathy Lanier had promised to leave it open, and now it seems to be closed, or everything has been stripped down, etc. Because I also write for Asian Fortune newspapers, and they wanted to, the community would like to know why is it that the unit was shut down, and then more important, the Asian Liaison Unit.
It wasn't shut down. No, come on, Pete.
Never.
Let me, as Pete comes up, and he'll explain it. But I think there was a real misconception about that. It was not shut down at all. It was a question of whether they needed to continue to use a particular building in Chinatown, but in no way was the unit shut down, were the numbers of officers assigned to it reduced. In no way was the function of the unit changed.
I can't really add anything to that. The mayor's absolutely right. The unit is still working. They work every day with the community. There was some pushback from the community when they weren't going to be physically located there. But those things happen all the time. We've got to move personnel to different facilities.
Okay, because someone said that everything was stripped down, so it's just a matter of moving it to somewhere else.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we had a meeting that the chief led, Chief Lanier led, with the community to try to clarify these issues. And I really thought that the community left that meeting with a better understanding of what was taking place, and frankly, happy that the unit was not being disbanded. Tom?
Mr. Mayor, we're coming up on the inaugural. The council members were a little bit upset yesterday when they were told that the Secret Service says they can drive to the Wilson building if they get there before 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm just wondering, what kind of instructions have your staff worked out with the Secret Service about your ability to move around the city, of which you're mayor, during this period of time when all the roads are closed?
I don't know that I'm prepared to be able to discuss that today, Tom, but if it's that, it's obvious to get up early.
Has there been any request that you restrict your movements at the Wilson building or whatever? You got to run the city?
I haven't received any such information at this stage. We will continue to be briefed We have the Secretary of the District of Columbia. We have Deputy Mayor Quander. We have our Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency officials involved in it. Our Deputy Chief of Staff is involved in it. But I think once we have clear information on the time, we'll be happy to brief you all on that. We could do it at the next bi-weekly.
And everything, as far as you know, everything's going smoothly?
As far as I know, it is, yeah. There's nothing, there's no...
He's shaking his head, yes, but don't take his answer.
As far as I know, everything is going fine. And I'm also confident that if there are bumps in the road, which there well may be, that we'll solve them. Mark?
Mayor Gray, you had said that you were going to put some kind of a sign on the Wilson building proclaiming something about DC's lack of voting representation. Are you any closer to letting us know what that's going to be?
There will be something, but I'm not any closer to being able to finalize what that will be. We're working on it.
Do you know, I mean, I've talked to people in the Wilson building and DC vote, and nobody seems to know anything about it. Are there discussions? Is there a working group? Is there some kind of idea? I mean, I thought that the building was under the control of the council so that they would actually have to have some role in this. If you're going to
the council does control the building. That's a fact. But are you telling me that there's actually a piece of information that hasn't been leaked?
So I would say actually your administration's been pretty good, with a few exceptions, about keeping a lid on leaks.
We'll as soon as we know what it is, we'll let you know. Matt?
And on a lighter note, some of the guests that you're planning to invite to join you to watch the parade, I'm hearing this morning that RG3 might be on your list.
I'd love to have him come, but you know, on a not so light note, he obviously may be you know, unable to, his mobility may be impaired somewhat at that point. We don't know what his situation with surgery is or what kind of condition you know, he will be in after the surgery. So my focus right now is on you know, having him get successfully through the surgery and hopefully be able to be on the mend as quickly as he possibly can.
As an executive, what do you think of Coach Shanahan's decision?
Well, probably if the Redskins had won, there'd be a different view of Coach Shanahan's decision. You know, and without getting into it, because I wasn't involved in the conversation, but I think we all know that the player, that RG3 played an enormous role in that himself. If you go back to the game when he was originally hurt, I think it was the Ravens game, you know, you had people standing on the sideline talking about whether he should continue to play, and while they were talking, he just put himself right back into the game. And, you know, the Redskins won that game. They won the Philadelphia and Dallas games with him in there. So, you know, we can second guess all we want to. I think the important thing at this stage is to have him, you know, go through whatever surgery he has to, go through the rehab period, and hopefully he will be back on the field as quickly as he can. I think he has done he's done so much for this city. He's such a great role model, and I want to see him play 10, 15, 17 years, because the quarterbacks now are playing a long time. He's played 1 year. He's made an enormous contribution to our team, and I hope he makes many more years of contributions. Thank you all very much.